Do you find yourself asking the question, how do I know if the content is finished? When will my book be complete? How do I know that there's enough information in this chapter to be valuable? My name is Kyle King. I'm the CEO and founder of The Writer's Game. We help people just like yourself, entrepreneurs, executives, aspiring authors write their story, publish an amazing manuscript, promote it, and then profit from that story so that you can build a business beyond just the story. In this video, I'm going to answer that one question that we get all of the time from our clients. When do I know the book is complete? Now, this would start with really being able to have a framework on the front end. When you're structuring out your content, before you just start talking or typing or telling people all about the concepts of your book, I need to understand one thing, and I want you to be able to write this down. What is the big problem that your book is focusing on solving? Then when you think about that big problem, what is the big idea surrounding the solution that you're going to be able to create with the chapters in your book that will then allow your reader, that specific person, to be able to go through a transformative process where they're learning, they're engaging, they're reflecting, they're going through a set of activities so that they can get to the end point where they've been able to solve the problem and go off and complete the next step in their mission. Now, you break down chapters by 5 components. Number 1 is the hook. How are you going to begin the chapter? What is the anecdote, the shocking statement, the statistic, the fact, the wow factor that's going to be able to draw the reader in, where they're able to not just learn from you, but they're able to be a part of the actual story. You're going to be able to build that relationship with them immediately. Number 2 is the objective, or what we call the thesis. What is the major takeaway or the major component? What does the reader have to know by the time they finish reading this chapter? Then once you understand that, number 3 are the 3 key takeaways. Now, oftentimes this is a back and forth question and answer of, Kyle, does it have to be 3? Could it be 4? Could it be 5? What are the major takeaways that a reader is going to get or walk away from? What are they going to be able to do or learn by them reading the content within your specific chapter? That's only for you to be able to answer. We look at 3 because we believe that your content can really be able to be cohesive in just 3 major takeaways, such as in this chapter, you're going to be able to understand the power of your story. And you're going to be able to understand the 3 myths surrounding writing books. And then you're going to be able to understand why people have so much trouble writing books. Then number 4 is the chapter content. Once you understand the objective, the thesis, the hook, as well as the key takeaways, now you have to have chapter content that is specific and in alignment with what your overall objective is. These could be your experiences, your stories, education, podcasts, different things that you've learned along the way, different activities. All of those different things should be in that section. Then the 5th thing is our bridge statement. How are you going to transition from this point or this chapter or this section to the next section so that you can continue to have scenes in continuous flow throughout the rest of your book? Once you understand those 5 components, it gets us back to our initial question is, when do I know the book is complete? How do I know to move on? How do I know that it's enough information? And if you were watching earlier and if you were listening, the biggest question that I gave is, okay, well, what are your 3 takeaways? It was, number 1 was, by the end of this, you're going to know the power of publishing. Number 2, you're going to be able to know the 3 myths surrounding why people don't write books. And then number 3 was one other thing, okay? The question now is, does this chapter meet the objective that I set? And does this chapter achieve the takeaways? Will the reader be able to achieve the 3 takeaways that I set? Does the content in my book align with the chapters and the overall takeaways as well as the objectives? If it's a yes, then it's time for you to move forward. If it's a no, then it's time for you to understand where the holes are, where the gaps are, and time to fill that content with research, with your expertise, with knowledge, with education, or build out your stories enough where you can really be able to create a setting. Does the chapters create an emotion? Am I building a relationship with my reader throughout my chapters? These are all questions that you can be asking to ensure that your content is not just valuable, but it's fluid as well as transformative so that your reader can continue to go on this amazing journey with you. The problem that I recognize in this journey that I see so many authors make is that self-limiting beliefs, ego, and a little bit of pride have them believe that they have to add so much more content. They need so many more stories. They need so many more activities or graphics. The reality of it is I've seen shorter books similar to Who Moved My Cheese, which is probably only 80 pages. And I've seen longer books like Atomic Habits by James Clear, which is probably 400 pages, that have the same amount of value, but how it's communicated is completely different. In the book by James Clear, Atomic Habits, it's a lot more activities. There's a longer framework. There's longer stories and specific points where someone can actually take action and be able to enhance their habits and be able to remove and break those bad behaviors. In a book with like Who Moved My Cheese, which is an amazing way to deal with change in your work and life, it's just a story of mice in this specific maze, and this short story that's walking you through a transformative experience, as well as a transformative message that someone could take, read in a 45-minute to an hour car ride, and their life is transformed, and they now have a different approach and perspective to addressing change. When we think about your book, you have to also think about, what is your objective? Do you want this to be a shorter story? Do you want this to be a longer length story? But that also starts with a beginning question, and this would be probably the first question that we ask our authors is, what are your objectives from this book? Who is your audience from this book? Who is potentially the reader of this book? Is because if you're writing it for a group of students that are in high school, the content in that book has to be positioned a little bit differently than if you're writing this for Harvard professors or a group of individuals that don't like to read much and they prefer pictures and graphics. So when you're thinking about this big problem, this big idea, these people that you're writing to, you have to understand the objectives, you have to understand the thesis as well as the takeaways, and then compare what you currently have to what your reader is experiencing. And once you do that, you'll be able to know that your book is complete or incomplete and how to fill the gaps. We'll see you guys next episode.